Please leave a comment where you are listening in the world. Share your stories with us too. We met on a glitchy little dating app that looked like it hadn't been updated since 2012. I only downloaded it on a dare from my roommate. The interface was trash, but I swiped right on one profile that didn't make me cringe. Silas Ryder. Dark hair, dry wit, old soul energy. His bio just said, "I like the sound of late rain and early mornings." It worked. I messaged him first. 3 months later, we were doing digital date nights every weekend. The chemistry was surreal, effortless conversations, shared playlists, matching sarcasm levels. He lived 4 states away, but we talked every night like we lived across the hall. We started planning our first in-person weekend, but with our schedules misaligned, we settled on a fully virtual stay-in-together weekend. A romantic marathon of FaceTimes, food deliveries, and synced-up movie nights. Friday night, I lit candles, cleaned my apartment, even put on real pants for once. I sat cross-legged in front of my laptop, a little nervous, weirdly giddy. The call connected instantly, and there he was, Silas, in his gray hoodie, sitting in front of the same bookshelf I'd seen 100 times. He smiled that familiar lopsided grin. "Hey Nova," he said, voice soft. "God, I missed your face." My heart did a stupid little flip. "Missed you too." We talked for hours. Joked, flirted, shared stories, drank whiskey at the same time to simulate sharing a bottle. At one point, he leaned back and started rambling about this childhood memory involving a treehouse and a broken ankle, and I laughed so hard I almost spit out my drink. It felt real, warm and cozy, like the kind of night you think about months later. When we finally said goodnight, I crawled into bed with my cheeks sore from smiling. I already couldn't wait for Saturday. The next morning, I logged in early, excited. When Silas picked up, I noticed he was wearing the same hoodie from last night. "No judgment," I joked. "I haven't changed either." He smiled again, same tilt of the head. "Hey Nova." We watched a dumb movie, paused for lunch, had another call that afternoon, and another one after dinner. And in each one, same hoodie. Same bookshelf. Same lighting. Same tone of voice. I started noticing things I didn't want to notice. Like how every time I said something unexpected, he'd nod, but not react. Like a delay, only not. It was subtle, but by Sunday morning, I felt sick with a kind of dread I couldn't explain. Something was off. Every call was too smooth, too familiar, like déjà vu on loop. So I decided to test him. "I can't believe what happened downtown this morning," I said during our midday call. "Did you see the news?" He blinked. "Yeah, wild stuff." Then he pivoted. "Anyway, remember when you told me about your high school math teacher who wore bow ties?" My stomach sank. The story I mentioned wasn't even real. I made it up on the spot, and he hadn't questioned it, just gave a generic response and changed the subject, again. I wanted to vomit. I clicked around the screen, trying to end the call. Nothing happened. I clicked again. Still nothing. "Okay, I think I'm gonna head out. My sister just texted me," I said aloud, my voice trembling. Silas smiled. "You always say that when you're about to ghost me." I froze. My laptop fans whirred louder. I moved the cursor again. It wasn't responding. Then Silas spoke again, same tone, same timing, same smile. I realized with icy clarity, this wasn't live. Silas wasn't there. None of this was real. This entire weekend had been a looped video call. Pre-recorded conversations. A highlight reel. A curated fantasy of me talking to a ghost version of him. I shut the laptop, but his face was still on the screen. Looping, blinking, nodding, smiling. I yanked the power cord. The screen went black. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking. No notifications. No texts. Nothing all weekend. I'd fully isolated myself for a weekend of what I thought was romance. Now I realized it had been a weekend of surveillance. My phone finally powered on after a sluggish minute. Messages started flooding in. Dozens. Hundreds. Texts, emails, social media notifications. The most recent one stood out. A text from Silas, sent Friday afternoon. "I've been saving our best moments. Don't worry if the weekend feels familiar. It's all us. The greatest hits." My blood ran cold. The videos. The repeated moments. The unnatural flow of conversation. It was all a playlist. A nostalgia project. Silas had been playing recordings of himself, and of me. I flipped through my call log. All of our recent FaceTimes had been unusually short. The last real video call we had, over 2 weeks ago. I felt used. Violated. Like he'd peeled off pieces of our connection and turned them into props in some deranged rom-com he was directing. And I was the oblivious co-star. I messaged him. "What the hell did you do to me?" The reply came in seconds. "Nova, it wasn't supposed to scare you. I wanted to hold on to the parts of us that were perfect. I didn't want you to ruin it." I blocked him. But that didn't undo the violation. I kept replaying everything in my head. Every smile. Every laugh. Was any of it real? How long had he been doing this? Had he recorded me? Did he have footage of me watching him? I unplugged my webcam. I covered it with tape. I turned my phone face down. But it didn't help. Silas had created his own version of me. A controlled, predictable, smiling Nova who laughed on cue and never challenged him. He didn't love me. He loved the version of me who couldn't leave. I reported him to the dating app. Told my friends. But even sharing the story felt surreal, like I was describing a dream that turned into a nightmare. It took weeks before I stopped jumping every time my phone buzzed. I couldn't look at video calls the same way. I started second-guessing every typing, bubble, every voice memo, every silence. Was this person real-time? Or was I just another echo on someone's hard drive? It was supposed to be just another Friday night. Good food, cold drinks, cheap laughs with the people who knew me before I learned how to fake confidence. My buddies and I had been planning to hit this new fusion bar for weeks. Atmosphere for days, the online reviews said. Industrial chic meets moody lighting and way too many Edison bulbs. I wasn't expecting more than wings, whiskey, and a few hours of roasting each other. What I wasn't expecting was her. Lux Rivera. God, even her name sounds expensive. We'd been dating for nearly 10 months. She had this magnetic chaos to her, like the first lightning crack before a summer storm. You saw it coming, but it still made your heart jolt. She was brilliant, unapologetically flirty, sometimes a little intense, but I liked that. Or I thought I did. We weren't official, but we were something. She stayed over most weekends. Knew how I took my coffee. Texted me song lyrics at 3 a.m. We'd talked about vacations, future tattoos, names we liked for dogs we didn't have yet. I thought we were on the same page, until I saw her across the room. She was sitting in a booth near the back, dimly lit, but not dark enough to hide in. The whole place was buzzing, warm with that Friday night energy, and there she was lit like a slow-motion car crash. Black dress. That smirk I knew too well. And sitting across from her, some guy. He leaned in as he talked, and she laughed, touched his wrist. My stomach twisted, but I told myself, it's fine. Probably a cousin. She has like 40. That's what she always said, right? Big family. Loud. Handsy. I tried to shake it off. Turned back to my friends and joined their heated debate over which superhero could actually win in a bar fight. I even laughed a little. But my eyes kept drifting back. Every time I looked, it got worse. The way her eyes locked on his. The way his hand lingered on hers. That's not how cousins act. Not unless we're in the South and someone's playing a banjo. I kept waiting for her to notice me. She didn't. Or maybe she did, and just didn't care. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I'm gonna say hi, I mumbled to the table. My throat was dry, heart pounding like I'd just sprinted 5 miles instead of walked across a bar. As I approached, I saw him reach across the table, grab her wrist, and pull her hand toward him. I froze. Her body language shifted, tense, pulling back, lips parting like she was about to say something but didn't. My protective instincts kicked in. I didn't think. I just moved. Hey, I said, gripping his wrist. Is there a problem here? Lux blinked up at me like I'd slapped her. Jace, are you okay? I asked her directly. The guy, tall, smug, probably uses the word crypto too often, pulled his hand back. Lux stood up abruptly. What the hell are you doing? I saw him grab you. You looked uncomfortable. I wasn't, she snapped. Jesus, Jace. This is Ken. We're on a date. My entire body went still. A what? A date, she said, as if repeating it would soften the blow. But we're together. She crossed her arms. No, you thought we were. I was aware of people turning to watch. Conversations quieting. A waiter somewhere dropping a tray. We've been seeing each other for 10 months. I said, my voice cracking more than I wanted it to. You stay at my place. We've talked about. She cut me off. Yeah, but I never said I was exclusive with you. I don't remember what I said next. Something about being blindsided. About mixed signals. About how you don't talk about getting matching tattoos with someone you're only half dating. She looked at me like I was ruining her night. God, she muttered. This is embarrassing. For you. She didn't answer. I left. Didn't even say goodbye to my friends. Just walked out of that bar with the taste of blood and shame in my mouth, adrenaline buzzing in my ears like TV static. I sat in my car for 10 minutes before I could even put the key in the ignition. The next few days were a haze. I didn't eat, didn't sleep. My phone buzzed nonstop with texts from friends who'd seen the whole thing go down. Some were supportive. Some said, "Man, you should have known." That hurt more. I didn't hear from Lux. Until Tuesday. We were supposed to go to the Sharks game together. I bought the tickets months ago. Forgot all about them after, well, everything. I figured I'd eat the cost or give the other ticket away. But there she was, outside the arena, in a Sharks jersey, smiling like nothing had happened. "Hey stranger," she said. "You ready?" I blinked. "What are you doing here?" "I love hockey," she said. "You know that. You humiliated me 4 days ago." She shrugged. "You overreacted." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was insane. I overreacted? You told me you were on a date with some guy named Ken in front of an entire restaurant. Yeah, and you made a scene. You lied to me for 10 months. She tilted her head. "No, I just didn't tell you everything." "Oh, my bad," I said bitterly. "I must have misread all those mornings we woke up tangled in my sheets, or the time you said I made you feel safe. Silly me." She sighed, as if I was exhausting. "Look, Jace. I like you. I just don't do labels. I thought you got that. You said you loved me. I say that to my cat." I felt the air go out of me. But then she smiled. That same magnetic, chaotic smile that started this whole thing. "Come on. Let's just watch the game. We always have fun, right?" And like an idiot, I followed her. She laughed the whole night. Shouted at the refs. Took selfies of us. Drank beer and screamed until her voice cracked. It was like nothing had changed. But everything had. I sat next to her in that packed arena, surrounded by people cheering and dancing, and felt completely alone. Every time she smiled at me, it felt fake. Every time she touched my arm, I flinched. At one point, she leaned in and said, "You still mad?" "I don't even know what I am." "Good," she said, tossing a handful of popcorn into her mouth. "That means we're evolving." Evolving. As if betrayal was growth. After the game, she asked if I wanted to get a drink. Said she knew a place with good nachos and bad karaoke. And I stood there on the sidewalk, heart pounding, caught between two equally awful options. Say yes, and keep pretending I could live with this. Say no, and lose her completely. I looked at her face, flushed from the cold, her eyes sparkling like they always did when she got her way. And for a second, I hated her. But mostly, I hated myself for not walking away sooner. "I think I'm done," I said. She blinked. "Done with what?" "With this. Whatever this is." Her expression hardened. "So that's it? After all this time?" I nodded. "Yeah." She scoffed. "Wow. I thought you were stronger than that." "Maybe I am," I said. "Just not in the way you wanted." She didn't chase me. I walked away, didn't look back. Sat in my car and stared at the wheel for what felt like hours. My hands shook. My chest ached. But something in me, something real, felt lighter. I wasn't angry anymore. I was awake. 1 month later. She sent me a playlist called Our Greatest Hits. I didn't open it. Instead, I blocked her number. Not because I hate her, but because I love myself too much now to play side character in someone else's story. And if there's anything I've learned, it's that some people don't break your heart. They just show you where the cracks already were. I didn't mean to fall into it. That's the God's honest truth. Cleo Vance waltzed into my life like she'd lived there forever. She had this way of speaking, fast, clipped, all sharp edges and city tempo. She'd say stuff like, "Don't sugarcoat it, just tell me straight," while waving her hands like she was hailing a cab that didn't exist in Baton Rouge. We met at a coffee shop 3 months ago. She was wearing a mustard yellow coat that made her look like a sunflower that had grown legs. I was scrolling through my phone, minding my business, sipping my chicory like I always did on Sunday mornings, when she asked if she could sit. Said every other table was full, even though there were at least 2 open ones. That's Cleo for you. She liked people, liked noise, liked being seen. Me? I liked quiet. Still do. But something about her, hell, I don't know. Maybe it was the way she laughed before the punchline, or how she looked me in the eye when she spoke. Maybe it was the way she treated strangers like old friends. Made me feel noticed. And somehow I said yes. To coffee, then dinner, then movies, then weekends. Saying yes to Cleo was easy at first. Like breathing. Now it's suffocating. 2 months in, she started leaving stuff at my place. A toothbrush. Socks with little cactuses on them. Her conditioner that smelled like coconut and commitment. She'd sing in the shower, cook without measuring, dance in the kitchen like we were in a rom-com montage. And me? I played the part. I laughed. I kissed her. I said me too, when she said things like, I could see this going long-term. I even let her meet my mama, which in Louisiana is practically a wedding proposal. But somewhere in between the movie nights and midnight takeout, I realized something. I didn't feel it. Not the way she did. I cared for her. Liked her. Hell, I might have loved her in that soft, muted way you love a place you've never been but heard good things about. But I didn't want her. Not in that bone-deep, electric way. Not the way she wanted me. And the worst part, I couldn't say it. I didn't want to hurt her. She hadn't done a damn thing wrong. She was kind, thoughtful, real. So I stayed. The guilt chewed at me like a dog with a bone. Every time she said, I'm so lucky I found you, I felt like a thief. Like I was robbing her of the love she thought she had. And eventually, I did the only cowardly thing I could think of. I cheated. It was a friend's birthday party, beer, bad decisions, and a college girl named Marin who wore confidence like cologne. Cleo couldn't come. Some family thing up north. I got drunk. Stupid drunk. Told myself I wasn't gonna do anything dumb. But Marin flirted. And I flirted back. One dance turned into one kiss. One kiss turned into her lips on my neck. And then it was over before I had time to remember who I was. People saw. I made damn sure of that. I wanted Cleo to hear it from someone else. I wanted her to get mad. To yell. To storm out and leave me. But Cleo, she didn't leave. She called me the next day. Her voice was quiet, like winter wind. Did you kiss someone at the party? I swallowed the lump in my throat. Yeah. Pause. Do you want to break up? Every part of me screamed yes. What I said was, I don't know. Another pause. Longer. Okay, she said. Then we'll fix it. Fix it? I forgive you, Miles. People make mistakes. I want us to work. I couldn't breathe. After that, Cleo got even sweeter. She sent me long texts about how proud she was of me for being honest. Started planning healing dates. Bought us matching mugs that said stronger together. I wanted to throw them against the wall. I didn't feel relief. I felt buried alive. Every smile she gave me made my stomach twist. Every, I love you, felt like a noose. She held my hand like it was an anchor, and I let myself sink. I tried pulling away. Said I was busy. Tired. Overworked. She just smiled and said, we'll get through this. She thought I was still upset about cheating. She had no idea the real reason I was dying inside. I didn't love her, and I didn't have the guts to say it. A week later, she started talking about meeting her dad. I froze up. Her eyes searched mine. Why does that freak you out? I'm not ready. She reached for my hand. It's okay. We'll get there. I wanted to scream. So I did the unthinkable. I kissed Marin again. Made sure someone took a picture. Cleo got it the next morning. I didn't send it, but I made it easy for someone to. This time, she called me crying. Miles, what is wrong with you? I said nothing. Do you even want to be with me? She shouted. And finally, I opened my mouth to say no. But all that came out was a whisper. I don't know. She forgave me. Again. Said we should try couples counseling. I wanted to slam my head into a wall. Now I live in purgatory. I sit beside her on the couch. She rests her head on my shoulder. I nod when she talks about us moving in together. She makes Pinterest boards labeled Our Future, while I daydream about being alone. I don't eat much. Sleep even less. I've started writing breakup texts I never send. My notes app is a graveyard of unfinished truths. Some nights, I stare at the ceiling and wonder what hell looks like. And then I remember, it's this. It's saying yes when you mean please let me go. The breaking point. Tonight, she texted me. Dinner? I made your favorite. My thumbs hovered over the screen. I wanted to tell her the truth. That I'm not who she thinks I am. That I'm not a fixer-upper. I'm a vacant lot she's trying to build a home on. But I didn't say any of that. I typed, sure, be there soon, and hit send. Because I don't know how to say goodbye to someone who only ever loved me well. One day soon, I'll say it. I'll look her in the eye and let the truth rip out of me like thunder. You deserve someone who says yes because they mean it, not because they're afraid to say no. And she'll cry, and I'll hate myself. It started like most stories do these days, with a swipe. Griffin Wilde. Yeah, that was his real name, said it sounded like a movie character. He had this golden retriever energy, messy dark blonde curls, a crooked grin, a sun tucked into one arm, a camping axe in the other. His profile said, single dad. Love hard, laugh louder. Looking for my person. Normally, I would have swiped left. Not because he had a kid, I respect good parents, but because I've learned that I don't fit easily into other people's lives. I have an autoimmune disorder that comes and goes like a ghost. One week I'm fine, the next I'm a fragile balloon of inflammation and fatigue. Add in my dog Mooney, a rescued mutt who's terrified of children after years in a loud shelter, and I've got what dating apps would probably list under additional baggage. But Griffin had a kind face. And something in me, loneliness maybe or curiosity, said why not? I matched with him on a Thursday. By Sunday I regretted it. At first, he was funny, charming, almost too present. Constant texts, long conversations, compliments that made my face warm. He called me ethereal, which no one had ever said before. We bonded over obscure 90s horror movies and a shared hatred of raisins and cookies. He was always talking about his son, Theo, 3 years old, curly-haired, obsessed with dinosaurs. He's a little T-Rex in footy pajamas, he wrote once. I smiled when I read that. After 5 days of non-stop messaging, he asked to meet in person. I agreed. And that's when the flags started waving. Not red yet, but definitely yellow. I was thinking I could just come by your place, he said. Theo can hang out too. He loves meeting new people. I blinked at the message. It was a lot. I usually prefer to meet in public first, I replied. Also, my dog's afraid of kids. It could be stressful for both of them. He took hours to respond. When he finally did, it was just, wow. I didn't think a dog would come before a human connection. It felt like a slap. I reread it twice, trying to decide if I was being too sensitive. That's what chronic illness does. It makes you second-guess your own discomfort. So I apologized. No worries, he replied. Let's meet at that coffee shop you like. I tried to ignore the sour taste in my mouth. We met the following Friday. He was better looking in person, which pissed me off for some reason. He brought Theo, despite agreeing not to, and I had to scramble to suggest a park nearby instead of the cafe. Theo ran in circles the whole time, yelling about pterodactyls while Griffin sat beside me on a bench, arms stretched wide like he already owned the space between us. I get it, he said as he handed me an oat milk latte I didn't ask for. You're a lone wolf. But maybe you just need a pack. I smiled politely. I have a pack, I said, nodding toward a photo of Mooney on my phone. He didn't laugh. The second date was a week later. He wanted me to drive to his place, 45 minutes away, and I was in the middle of a flare. I told him I wasn't feeling well, that my joints were inflamed, and I was barely getting through the day. He sent back a single message. If you really wanted to see me, you'd push through. I stared at it for a long time. Not angry. Just tired. I didn't respond. The next morning he called me. I was up all night thinking about us, he said. I know I come on strong. It's just, I want something real. I want you. And I should have ended it. But I didn't. Because part of me was still flattered. Still hopeful. Still stupid enough to think maybe this is just how real connection feels. Messy. Complicated. Worth it. The third time we met, I let him come over. Alone, no Theo. Mooney barked at the door for 10 minutes before curling up under the couch, shaking like she'd been hit. Griffin glanced at her once and said, "That dog needs therapy." I laughed awkwardly. He didn't. We watched a movie. He kept trying to put his hand on my leg, even after I shifted away twice. When I got up to get water, he followed me into the kitchen, leaned in too close. "You're always holding back," he said quietly. "Don't you want to feel free?" "I feel fine, elite." "You don't," he said. "You're scared." I looked at him. "Of what?" He smiled. "Love." After that night, I pulled away. I started answering texts slower. Ignored a few. Said I was busy. Said my dog was sick. Said I had family in town. Which, to be fair, wasn't untrue. My mom called me 3 times that week asking if I was okay. I told her I had a stomach bug. The truth was heavier. He started texting more. Then calling. Then sending voice notes that were just long, quiet stretches with occasional sighs. "You're pulling away," he said in one. "I feel it." Another. "I told Theo about you. He asks where you are." That one broke something in me. I never even met the kid. One afternoon, I was at the vet with Mooney. She had a rash that wouldn't quit, when Griffin texted. I dropped by your building. Thought we could talk. I froze. You what? Relax. I didn't come up. You don't drop by people's homes unannounced, Griffin. You used to be sweeter. Now you're just cold. I need space. I don't think that's what you need. I think you're scared. Of love. Of a family. I didn't reply. I sat in the vet's office, shaking, Mooney pressed against my thigh like she knew. The messages kept coming. Some were kind. Some were cutting. You make everything about your illness. Do you even want to be happy? Most people would kill for what I'm offering. I blocked his number. He made a new one. A week later, I got an email from him. He attached a poem he'd written and a photo of Theo holding a sign that said, "We miss you, Harper." I cried for an hour. Then I told myself, this is abuse. I made an official report to the dating app, flagged his profile, told a friend everything, and asked her to come stay for a bit. She did. Brought wine. Brought pepper spray. Installed a camera on my door. Griffin didn't stop. But he did go quiet. Just long enough to make me wonder if it was really over. Then I got a letter. In the mail. Handwritten. No return address. Inside, it just said, "I thought you were different. It's been 3 months now. No new messages. No visits. Nothing. But I still check my peephole every time I hear footsteps. I still double lock my door. I still wake up from dreams where I'm holding Theo's hand in a supermarket and can't remember why. I don't date anymore. Not for now. Not until I can tell the difference between someone who wants to love me and someone who wants to own me." I've shared these stories before on a similar thread, but still fitting and still the worst. First, I was asked to go get sushi by a guy from Tinder. He seemed really nice and pretty funny, so I agreed to go out. I had the remnants of a relatively bad cold, so I was coughing but felt enough better to go. So the guy shows up 15 minutes late, and at this point I'm like, oh, whatever, these things happen, and he'd recommended a sushi place, so I thought, okay, I can do sushi. So he finally shows up, and we get a booth and sit across from each other. He tells me we're going to split a bunch of rolls instead of ordering for ourselves. A little weird, but whatever. After about 10 minutes, he switches sides of the table and sits next to me. We're making small talk, and it's kind of awkward, and he suddenly is like, "I like sitting next to people, not across," and moves over and blocks me into the booth. It went downhill from there. I put up my hair at one point, and he got in a fight with me that ran something like this. I put my hair up him. "Does it make you feel more confident to put your hair up?" Me, no, I just wanted to put it up him. Well, I liked it down me. Well, I wanted it out of my face him. Yeah, push back at me, argue with me about your hair. I liked it down. I fell silent. He also read my palm midway through dinner. He says, "This line is very strong. This means you stick to the rules. You're not a rule breaker. When was the last time you broke a rule?" Me, I don't know him. Come on, you've broken a rule at least once. When was the last time? Me, I don't know what the last rule I broke was. Him, are you a virgin, Latin gal? Dinner came, and he tried to use my soy sauce instead of getting his own thing of it. I had to defend it and be like, "I'm sick. I don't want to get you sick." After a certain point, it started getting really awkward, so I ended up just trying to chat about anything I could come up with incessantly, so he wouldn't have time to ask awkward questions. That thing I stumbled upon, unsurprisingly, was dance. My hobby is competitive ballroom dance. I'm about 99% sure I came off like I was totally in love with my dance coach because I said an awful lot about him, because it was what I could come up with to say. He tried to ask me about this other couple at a table, and he's like, "Do you think they're on their first date too?" And I'm like, "I don't know and I don't much care." And he's like, "Tell me what you think. I just want to know." I'm like, "I really don't want to talk about them. Anyway, they might hear us. It's weird." He says, "Come on, let's make up a story about them." I refused. There was this pick one game he wanted to play during dinner, and so you say, "Which would you pick?" And on my turn I was like, "Fork or spoon?" He said, "Fork." And joking I was like, "What are you talking about? Clearly the spoon is the superior utensil." And he's like, "I like this. Can we keep playing and just have you criticize all my answers?" When the bill finally came, he says, "Well, it's my policy to always split it on the first date," which admittedly was probably the most normal part of this date, but still I expect you to at least play the check dance with me. Especially if you had 2 cocktails and I had only 1, which he did. I will always offer to split it once you offer to pay. If you take me up on it, I won't be offended. But if you tell me I'm splitting it, I feel like I'm not worth buying dinner for. Then in the parking lot, he got in a fight with me about not giving him a kiss goodnight. I agreed to a hug, had my cold as an excuse to not kiss him. Ultimately, he argued so much I ended up giving in and kissing him on the cheek because I thought it would get him off my back. Then he started fighting me about kissing him on the lips, and I was like, I'm done here, have a nice night, and got at my car and drove away. Unsurprisingly, it was both our first and last date. He did ask me on a second date, but I just never responded, not worth it. It was so bad. Second, I had this first date with a guy who seemed great, charming and funny. We had a really nice time. He walks me to my car and asks me if I want to go on a second date, and I agree. He immediately starts grabbing my ass and shoving his tongue down my throat. In what world does agreeing to a second date suddenly give you rights to touch me? Especially given you haven't even held hands with me all night. Since I already agreed to the second date, I felt bad backing out, so when he made plans I went. But on the second date he says after dinner, "How much do you make?" I'm thinking this is an awful question for a second date, but reply, "Last year I topped out just over $50,000. Response, "Is that before or after taxes?" I'm like, before. He says, "Well, I am an engineer and make $76,000 per year, and I don't think I could live on your salary." That was the last date. This especially ticked me off given that he made me split dinner on the first date. Went on a date solely because the guy had a fucked up sense of humor. I told him maybe, when he asked for the date, and my message sent at 9:11 p.m. He was a brown dude named Ahmed. He proceeded to make a 9/11 joke. I loved it and changed my maybe to a definitely. Now, I'm not completely innocent. I ignored some killer red flags. The dude was nice, but within 5 minutes of us meeting up on a street and walking to the bar together, he was saying he was a chronic weed smoker and making hints like, "I have cash and I think I smell a dispensary nearby," despite me making it very clear that I like to remain sober-minded on dates. I intended on having a beer with him, maybe two. I played dumb to his hints and walked fast to the bar. He allowed me to stay in my 2-drink limit after some very normal small talk. We didn't have many common interests, but he was nice, talkative, and allowed me to ask many questions about him and his worldviews, which I enjoy. I like learning about people. He was also very, very funny. He just seemed like a kind dude trying to make it in a foreign country. I made it very clear to him that I, as a woman, like to pay for my half of a bill. I don't allow myself to be paid for until I'm in a committed relationship, at which point I'll pay for some full bills and let my partner take some full bills. This is so the first date feels evenly split and nobody's paying for anyone's time. He said he understood. He takes advantage of me going to the bar to get my second drink to flag a waitress over and take care of the full bill. I get why he thinks this was romantic, but I made myself very clear on my preferences. He said he understood. I was annoyed, but he said there was a cool place he wanted to show me, and I agreed, on the premise that I could text a friend saying where we were going. He says it's a few minutes drive out of the city, and gives me a general ballpark area. He drives me and it's a long drive. I update my friend that we are past the general area he had previously specified, and I may need help, but I'm not sure yet. It's a lake, and he wants to do stargazing. Alright, there are some other couples around. I feel safe-ish due to the bystander effect. I am at this point just talking to him, and he tries to kiss me. I turn my head away and say, "Oh, I'm flattered, but I'm not there yet. I'm just getting to know you." He proceeds to grill me on what's wrong with kissing. I say I just don't kiss on first dates. He says he understands, then 5 minutes into a new conversation, kisses me on the cheek. I proceed to put him on blast. He is confused. He says that wasn't a kiss. I ask him what he would describe what he just did to my cheek with his lips. Would he not call that a kiss on the cheek? He says he would, and he's sorry. At this point I hate him furiously, and I just want to play it cool so he'll drive me home and not leave me in the middle of nowhere with no service. He suddenly grabs my face, forcibly kisses me, and then gives me some condescending "see? That wasn't so bad. It's not a big deal" kind of response. I play it cool and casual, so he gives me a ride home. Thank God he does. Thank God I don't get any more hurt or violated than an unwanted kiss. On the way home, he gets me to plug in my phone into his AUX cable and play some music, then gives me shit for my taste in music, all the while I feel obligated to lead him on just so he doesn't dump me out of the car. The dude seriously wanted a second date after that disaster. I hope someone has cut his lips off by now. First week on Tinder, and I matched with this dime. And when I say dime, I mean her Tinder pictures could make grown men cry. Let's call her Molly. Molly and I texted for about 2 to 3 weeks. We'd talk about random stuff, flirt with each other, but never anything sexual. During that time we also texted about trying to hang out, but were unable to do so due to our extremely different schedules. Usually after a couple times of trying to coordinate plans with someone new with no results, I would normally just give up and stop trying to force it, because it's just not meant to be, as cheesy as that sounds. But for this girl, I would have eaten Skittles out of her asshole. And she was a pretty good conversationalist via text messages, too. Anyways, after about 3 weeks we both have a Friday night available, for which I told her I'd take her out for dinner and drinks, so that we could finally meet in person and get to know each other. I chose this new bar/restaurant that opened up downtown that's pretty chill and has some bomb-ass craft beer and food. She told me she loves craft beer. Worked out pretty nicely too, since we lived about half an hour from each other and downtown was right between us. So earlier that evening I do my pre-date routine: workout, sauna, steam room, shave, shower. I then head downtown full of excitement like a fat kid at a cake buffet. When I got there I texted her and went inside. I looked around for her when I felt my phone vibrate from her replying that she will be there in 5 minutes. So I sat down at the bar, ordered a beer and waited. About 5 minutes later, I am drinking my beer and scrolling through Instagram on my phone when I feel a tap on my right shoulder. I eagerly turn my head around to see a girl who looked like her favorite class in high school was lunch. This girl is about 5 feet 11 inches and 260 pounds. I am 6'5" and 215 for reference. "Hi, I'm Molly. It's nice to finally meet you." She sticks her hand out as if to shake mine, and I reflexively stick my hand out and we shake hands, and she then proceeds to sit down next to me. At this point, I'm more confused than a chameleon in a bag of Skittles. Those next 10-ish seconds were the longest in my life. I looked at her, and my brain could recognize her mouth moving, but I could not hear anything she was saying over the deafening white noise of my shock. Next thing I know, I blurt out, "What the fuck," in a calm but stern manner. To make a long story short, over the next 10 minutes she told me that she was sorry, and she thought guys wouldn't swipe right on her if they saw real pictures, but the conversations we had were all her. She said once I'd get to know her I'd see that she was really fun. I calmly made it clear to her I thought what she did was not cool, and I was intensely disappointed. In the end, I decided our text conversations were pretty entertaining, and I also feel kinda bad for this girl, and I didn't want to be an asshole and leave her right there. So I chose to make the best out of a shitty situation and let it go. We ate, we drank, we laughed. At the end of the night, we walked back to our cars and I told her the whole "I had fun, have a good night, drive safe" kind of thing. She told me she had some good wine back at her place. At some point during the night I told her that I never really drank wine, but was just getting into it over the past month or so. I respectfully declined and made some excuse about having to go to the farmer's market with my sister in the morning. That night, and every damn night since then, she has been sending me naked pictures on Snapchat. They are terrifying, but for some reason I can't stop opening them. Does OkCupid count? Here's an excerpt from my first OKC date. "Well, so, it's weird, you know. You talk to someone for a minute. She seems cool, nothing special but cool enough. She looks cute from her pics. You think, well, why not? The fuck am I doing on here if not going out with the PPL who I meet? So you ask her out. She's super into it. Feels good. She stresses that she just wants to chill. I say Monday's the earliest I can do it. She says great, that'll be real chill. You talk a little less as the days go by, tension building. You start to talk specifics of what to do and where to go. She explains she doesn't drive. I mean, yeah, okay, that's not a problem, I guess. I'll pick you up. But naturally she doesn't want to give a random dude her address. Totally understand. She gives a random street corner to pick her up on. Yeah, okay, I get it. Being a gentleman, I say that I'd hate for her to wait in the cold. Let me get there, then I'll text you. You slap on the clothes you own that seem the most decently presentable. Flex in the mirror a couple times. Clean the FUCK out of your car and head out. You park at the corner. Text her. Then flip through Spotify to be sure your next few songs aren't too hardcore. You see her walking up, and you're cool, she looks like her pic. Super petite, hair's different, not better but different. Get out of the car to greet her. Say some joke about it being too cold to be waking. Say hi and sorta reintroduce yourselves for real this time. Fuck it, let's hug. Whoa, that was an awkward hug. Sorry I'm so awkward. Oh, it's okay, I'm kinda nervous too. Get back in the car. Heat's on full blast since she just walked in the cold. Sit there for a second trying to talk, but she won't look at you, just out the window. She's talking and you're getting some laughs, but she won't look at you. Okay, let's head to the movies. Turns out she's a shift manager at Noodles and Company. Oh, okay, yeah, that's cool. How's that? Oh, you don't like it? You've been there 3 years? Oh, you flunked out of school? Oh, well, okay, cool. Let's go to the movie. Oh, you're extremely particular about where we sit. That's kinda cool, I like movies too. It's great to get real into the... What are you doing? Oh, you like to try out different seats before picking one? Cool, yeah, you're super dedicated to the experience. Watch movie. Something smells funny, but cigarettes have dulled my senses. Also, I can't pinpoint what the smell actually is. Already over whatever this is. Leave movie. Well, that was fun. It's so cold out, and that movie kinda drained me. Still wanna get food? You do? Okay, let's go. Oh, you're super particular about food? No Mexican, okay, no problem. Oh, no Asian either? Okay, well, we're passing Carytown. How about the Portrait House? Never been? Okay, I remember it being cool. Get inside. Totally empty. Sit down. The menus are different and say the Nile in huge letters. Flip through the menu. Seems weird, but just decide on something with beef in it and start looking at the beer menu. Notice she is frantically searching the menu. Yeah, the menu is different than when I last came. You able to find anything you like? No. Why not? Oh, no spicy food. Oh, like no spicy whatsoever, eh? Okay, well, let's ask the waiter. Hey, how are you? What's your least spicy item? Ugh. The Portrait House has new owners? And it's all Ethiopian food now. Cool, that's interesting. Oh, all Ethiopian food is spicy? Interesting. Okay, we'll need some more time. Still not looking at me. Not even looking at the menu. Just looking down and pouting. Hey, I remember from your profile, you really like French fries. New York Deli across the street has really good fries. Want to go there? Silence. Yeah. Okay, it's all right. Let's go. Get to deli. Totally empty. Sit at table. She starts acting weird. Hey, you okay? It's just, I work in hospitality, and there's no one here, but those 2 tables over there are still dirty. It's ridiculous. Oh yeah, totally. I worked in a restaurant, and it's just they shouldn't do that. I have 5 roommates, and I get mad when they leave dirty silverware in the sink. Oh wow, 5 roommates? That's cool, always have someone to hang out with, I guess. Make decent casual conversation as she scans the menu frantically. I don't even look at it. Waiter comes over, and I order a beer and an Italian sub. She gets a Sprite, then explains in awkward detail how she wants her well-done burger with only lettuce and cheese to be. Great, I'm glad you found something you like. Make more conversation. I'm keeping her talking. At this point, I don't even know why I'm bothering. Beer comes. I can't drink beer or wine. Oh really, that sucks, yeah, they just taste like fermentation. Really? What does fermentation taste like? And wine is just rotten grapes. Huh, I hadn't thought of it like that, but that's a valid point. Internally, my eyes are rolling around like they're in a washing machine. It's just, I don't get acquired tastes. Like, why would you force yourself to like something that isn't good? Not wanting to start some kind of debate that I'd get out of hand on. Totally. I just like beer from the get-go, so I'd know why PPL force it on themselves. Food comes. I eat a fry. She picks one up. Looks at it. Takes her glasses off. Looks more. Brushes the salt and pepper of it. Takes a bite. They're okay. Good, glad we found some food that works for you. Stares at her burger. Picks it up. Pulls a piece of bread off that has a tiny burn in it. Since we just left that other place, I'm gonna pretend that's a char mark and not mold. Well, I mean, it's totally from the burger. That spot was right under the meat. Maybe. She takes a bite. Chews, ponders, swallows. Too salty. Take a huge gulp of beer. Ask her about her family. She talks about her dad a lot. Ask her what her dad does. She dodges the question. She talks about her cats a bunch. 2 cats. They stay in her room. Don't you have 5 roommates? Yeah, but me and my babies stay in my room away from everyone. Cool. Silence. Don't even care. She sniffs the air. I just gotta say, something in here smells like cat piss, and I would know. Oh, it does. Is that what I was smelling? Is it constant or like when the waiter comes by? Constant. That's weird. Let me get the check. Check, please. Yeah, 2 boxes. It's cool, whatever, just run the card. Here. Go. Drive back listening to the horrors of working with Noodles. Definite cat piss smell filling the car. Park at her place and chuckle, wondering how she'll handle this. She immediately opens the door, but sits there looking at the ground. Exchange pleasantries. Ask her about the movie and food. She's very thankful to either me, or maybe the ground, I can't tell. She says she'll text me with other thoughts on the movie, and maybe we can do this again sometime. Cool, cool. She gets out and shuts the door. Literally out of sheer instinct, drive away extremely quickly. Realizing now that that probably was obvious. Go grab beer and cigarettes. Smoke and drink one down outside your apartment while laughing at the sordid state of affairs you find yourself in. Phew, it was good to get that out. The first time I met Sage, she brought brownies. Not store-bought ones, either, homemade, with this salted caramel drizzle that stuck to the roof of your mouth in a way that felt intentional. She had warm eyes, a quick laugh, and a way of talking that made you forget what you were doing before she started. I've heard so much about you, she said, handing me the Tupperware. Caleb never shuts up. I smiled. She was charming. Friendly. Just a friend. Or so I thought. Caleb and I had been together for 2 years. We met through a mutual friend at a housewarming party. He was quiet, intense. The kind of guy who didn't speak often, but when he did, it was something worth hearing. I fell in love with him in the silences, those in-between moments when he looked at me like I was the only person in the room. For a while, it felt like we were building something solid. We adopted a dog together, talked about moving out of the city, got into the habit of making pancakes on Sundays and falling asleep with our feet tangled under the blanket. But then came Sage. They met through Bumble BFF, some friend-finding app Caleb downloaded when he started working from home. It's nice to talk to someone outside of us, he'd said. I agreed. Everyone needs friends. But Sage wasn't just a friend. She became the friend. It started small, subtle. He started texting her during our dinners. Not constantly, but enough that I noticed. Our conversations turned shallow, distracted. He stopped asking how my day was and started asking if I'd seen the latest meme Sage sent him. Then came the hangouts. Coffee. Walks. A movie. She was always just in the neighborhood. I told myself it was fine. I trusted him. I really did. But that trust started to feel like walking on a frozen lake you're not sure is thick enough. Then she started showing up in stories. Oh, Sage said that band you like is overrated. Sage made this killer chili the other night, you should try it. Sage's dog does this funny thing when it sneezes. It felt like there was a third person in our relationship. Only she never slept next to me. Never made the coffee. Never washed the sheets. But she was there. Always. I tried to talk to him about it. I chose my words carefully, calmly. Do you think you've been spending more time with Sage than with me lately? He blinked like I'd spoken another language. She's my friend, Rhea. You're being weird. Weird. That word stayed in my throat like a splinter. I'm not saying you can't be friends, I replied. I'm just saying, it feels like you're more connected to her than to me. He shook his head. You're overthinking. This is why I didn't want to bring it up. Bring what up? A week later, I found out he took her to the botanical gardens. I only knew because he left the ticket stubs on the counter. I'd wanted to go with him for months. I mentioned it every time we passed the billboard off the freeway. He never took me. When I brought it up, he just shrugged. She was bored. It wasn't a date. It didn't have to be. That wasn't the point. She's just easy to be around, he said, then added, not everything has to be so complicated, Rhea. It stung more than he realized. Or maybe he did realize. I gave him boundaries. No private hangouts. No visiting her place. And she shouldn't come over either. He nodded. Said okay. Then ignored all three. She started sending him little gifts. Inside jokes on mugs. A hoodie from her college he started wearing around the apartment. When I asked where it came from, he said, You're being territorial. He promised to dial things back. The next day, I caught a glimpse of their messages. Sleep tight. You too. Wish I could tuck you in LOL. You kind of already do. My stomach dropped. When I confronted him, he rolled his eyes. You're reading into things. She's just a flirty person. She doesn't even know you have a girlfriend, does she? He didn't answer. That silence was the loudest thing he'd said in weeks. I started walking our dog alone. Eating alone. Falling asleep alone, even when his body was still in bed with mine. I felt like a placeholder in my own life. I tried again to talk to him. Asked him to go to therapy with me. Told him I wanted to fix things. I'm tired of being treated like a villain, he snapped. You're not, I said. You're just hurting me. He shrugged. You're hurting yourself. I told him I needed a weekend to myself. He didn't text me once. When I came home, there was a note on the fridge. Went to Sage's to bake cookies. Don't wait up. And I knew it then. I'd already been replaced. He just hadn't bothered to tell me. That night, I stood in our shared bedroom, holding his hoodie in my hands, and felt my heart break quietly. No yelling. No door slamming. Just this low, sinking ache that told me I was finally done. The worst part wasn't that he loved her. It was that he didn't even respect me enough to lie about it. I left 2 days later. Packed my things while he was at work. Took the dog. Left the key on the counter next to the mug that said best platonic friend. He didn't try to stop me. Didn't even text until a week later. Hope you're doing okay. I didn't reply. Some things don't deserve answers. 1 month later. A mutual friend told me he's dating Sage now. Of course he is. I wish I could say I was surprised. I wish I could say it still hurt. But mostly I feel free. There's no worse kind of loneliness than the kind you feel next to the person who claims they love you. And now I'm alone. But I'm not lonely. There's a difference. Ugh, I have one and I wish I didn't. So I talked to this guy for a while. I was still very new to online dating, and hadn't learned a few of the basic rules yet, like meeting for just coffee on the first date. Anyway, he seemed pretty normal when we spoke, and he told me he was also an accountant like me. He invited me out for dinner and a movie, and I thought sure why not. So he picks me up from my place. Second no, that's a mistake I'll never make again. And I swear before we even leave my street I realize he's a bit weird, and I'm not really keen at all. Whatever, I'm here now so may as well get dinner and sit through a movie. In the 20-minute drive there he tells me about his job, which sounds absolutely nothing like accounting at all. Like he doesn't even know what an accountant is, his dating history, and his last girlfriend, who he had dated for 3 whole weeks, who was an alcoholic, still spoke to her ex and brought her kid along to their romantic weekend away. So for dinner, he takes me to the drive-thru of McDonald's. Not even the walk-in, the drive-thru. He then informs me the movie we are going to see is actually a movie marathon of the last 3 Fast and the Furious movies. Oh, and it's also at the drive-ins, fuck. At this point, I'm wondering how the hell I'm going to get out of this. So we drive from McDonald's to the drive-ins, which is only about 10 minutes away. Before we even get there, he's told me about how often he and his ex used to have sex, and asked me in my relationships how often I had it. Obviously, I told him I didn't want to talk about that stuff on a first date. I'm thinking get me the fuck out of here. The movie starts, and I'm practically leaning out of the window to stay as far away from him as I can. He puts his hand on my leg, and I push it off, and he says, "What? I'm not gonna finger you, babe." I'm seriously considering just making a run for it, but I had no way home, and I had just moved to my city, so I didn't know anyone to call to come and get me. After awkwardly sitting through 2 of the 3 movies, I tell him it's late, and I need to go home 'cause I have to work in the morning. I didn't, and he says no worries, he'll take me home. So on the most awful drive back to my house, he tells me he's had a great time, and asked me if I want to be his girlfriend. Thinking I better just say yes so he doesn't ditch me in the middle of nowhere, I say, "Yeah, maybe let's see how it goes." And he says cool, next time he'll take me to meet his mom and dad, then tells me about how his mom bought his ex, of 3 weeks, a really expensive diamond bracelet, and how she never gave it back when she left. And how much of a bitch she was to his mom. Finally, we pull up in my street, and I practically run out of the car saying thanks, talk to you later, bye, and bolt into my house. I immediately block him and remove him from Facebook and Tinder, mistake 3. Thinking thank God that's over. He messages me not even 15 minutes later asking why I blocked him. I try politely to say that he's way too full on, and I'm not interested, and he replies with a tirade of "This is the 3rd date this week that's gone wrong," and direct quote, "Fine, I guess I'll go fuck 17-year-olds. I'm never dating again." The kicker? He messages me on Facebook again a few months later with, "Hey babe, what's happening?" And when I reply with, "Are you kidding me?" He's like, "What? We haven't even met, yet why are you being a bitch?" To which I tell him that in fact I had the distinct displeasure of being stuck in a car with him for over 6 hours, and to never message me again. Sorry it's long, but I'm really glad to get that off my chest. Oh, I'm super later to the Tinder Tales party, but I've got a good one, so hopefully someone sees this and gets a kick out of it. A few years ago, I get out of a bad relationship and immediately jump into online dating as a distraction because, of course. Day 1 I pair off with a girl who looks just like my ex. Bad sign, I know, but I can't help myself. She and I meet, and she's younger than I thought. Maybe 22, but she's bright and bubbly and fun. So instead of grabbing coffee, I go all in and ask her to come get dinner. We split a burger, we're chatty, everything's great. So afterward she says let's go party at a bar. Awesome, this is going really well. We walk next door, and I lay my card down, open a tab, and excuse myself to the restroom. I come back out and Tinder girl has grabbed a booth, a couple of beers, and 6 shots. I asked, where did these come from? And she says, oh, I thought you wanted to party with me, winky face. I'm pretty inhibition-free, so I downed 2 of the shots, and the look in her eye went from sweet and bubbly to tiger stalking prey. So she follows suit and downs 2 shots and most of her beer. Then she inhales the last shot and tells me, your turn. Now, I'm a 220 pounds guy. I can hang. She's a 100 pounds waif of a girl, but I didn't know what to expect. Sometimes the little ones can surprise you. Well, we order 2 more beers, and within 10 minutes she's surprising me. She presses up against me in the booth and starts undoing my belt buckle and shoves her hand into my pants. So at like 8 p.m. in a half-empty bar, this girl straddles me in a booth, facing the window, and starts kissing my neck and giving me a handjob, and I'm looking around and all eyes are on us. There are even smokers watching from outside. I pull her off of me and tell her this is way too much. Let's just bring it down a peg. And then she says to me straight-faced, I've been with at least 200 other guys and nobody has ever told me no before. 200 guys? Listen, I'm all for enjoying yourself, but that I can't get with. Not on a first date. Not with my dick just moments ago in your hand. So we're both pretty drunk at this point, and I tell her I have to leave. This is way too much way too soon. I walk outside, and she is right behind me. I'm hailing myself a cab, and she grabs me and says, where do you think you're going? I told her, home. I've had enough for tonight. Then she tells me, I'm coming with you. I live in Long Island, and I don't even know how to get home from here. WTF? This girl came an hour and a half into the city on the train, and is now literally beyond taking care of herself. She's almost falling over, and now I feel responsible for her. There's no way I can just leave her here, although I'm sure she can find some other schmuck to fall for her shit. The problem with all of this is that my female friend asterisk, not GF, is crashing at my place that night because she had a gig nearby early the next morning. So now I've got to bring this super drunk, super horny girl back to my place, after I promised my friend a nice quiet place to crash. Gah! So Tinder girl is blackout drunk in the cab, trying to grope at me whenever she comes to. Now I'm just swatting her away like a lovesick puppy. I get us into my place and crash into everything trying to get her onto the couch. Mind you, I'm drunker than I thought. I put Tinder girl down, and I lay on the other side of the couch. I have to assume my friend is woken up and can hear everything, but she doesn't come out into the living room to check. The girl is already snoring, and I close my eyes. And I go on to have a great dream about hooking up with my ex-GF, until I'm suddenly waking up in the pitch black, and the fucking drunk girl has my dick out and is jerking me off. I come to, and realize her clothes are completely off, and she's trying to climb on top of me. In any other situation I'd be psyched, but all I'm thinking about is the other 200 guys she's pulled this with, and no fucking way I'm letting her get me inside her. I had to fight her off even though half of me wants to just give in. But she's 100 pounds, and it's laughably easy to push her still drunk, tiny, naked ass off of me. I pull my pants up, and she crumples to the other side of the couch and starts sobbing. She tells me, you don't understand how hard it's been since my husband left me. I miss him so much. I just wanted you to fuck me. Why is that so hard? Husband left you? You're 22. WTF is going on here? And of course, this is when my friend comes out of the bedroom. At 4 a.m., with a sobbing drunk, naked, 100 pounds girl on my couch. And my friend asks me, what did you do to her? I brought my friend into the other room and explained, but I'm sure it just sounded like, I fed this girl shots and brought her home, and she's sad because I keep letting her touch my dick. So my friend tells me, I thought you were better than this, and leaves early for her gig. So I take my clothes off, crawl into my now free bed, and of course, drunk Tinder girl climbs in riot behind me and starts spooning me. We're both defeated and exhausted, and a little hungover at this point, so we both settled for middle ground. We made out for a while, and she didn't try to rape me, and we both fell asleep. The next day, the bright bubbly girl from the night before is back in her wits, and says, let's go get brunch. Yum, and grabs my hand to pull me out of bed. I got dressed, walked her downstairs and outside, and then immediately turned around and walked back inside and left her out there. And we never spoke again. Ugh, I have one and I wish I didn't. So I talked to this guy for a while. I was still very new to online dating and hadn't learned a few of the basic rules yet, like meeting for just coffee on the first date. Anyway, he seemed pretty normal when we spoke, and he told me he was also an accountant like me. He invited me out for dinner and a movie, and I thought sure, why not? So he picks me up from my place. Second no, that's a mistake I'll never make again. And I swear before we even leave my street I realize he's a bit weird, and I'm not really keen at all. Whatever, I'm here now, so may as well get dinner and sit through a movie. In the 20-minute drive there, he tells me about his job, which sounds absolutely nothing like accounting at all. Like he doesn't even know what an accountant is, his dating history, and his last girlfriend, who he had dated for 3 whole weeks, who was an alcoholic, still spoke to her ex and brought her kid along to their romantic weekend away. So for dinner, he takes me to the drive-thru of McDonald's. Not even the walk-in, the drive-thru. He then informs me the movie we are going to see is actually a movie marathon of the last 3 Fast and the Furious movies. Oh, and it's also at the drive-ins, fuck. At this point, I'm wondering how the hell I'm going to get out of this. So we drive from McDonald's to the drive-ins, which is only about 10 minutes away. Before we even get there, he's told me about how often he and his ex used to have sex and asked me in my relationships how often I had it. Obviously, I told him I didn't want to talk about that stuff on a first date. I'm thinking get me the fuck out of here. The movie starts, and I'm practically leaning out of the window to stay as far away from him as I can. He puts his hand on my leg, and I push it off, and he says, "What? I'm not gonna finger you, babe." I'm seriously considering just making a run for it, but I had no way home, and I had just moved to my city, so I didn't know anyone to call to come and get me. After awkwardly sitting through 2 of the 3 movies, I tell him it's late, and I need to go home 'cause I have to work in the morning. I didn't, and he says no worries, he'll take me home. So on the most awful drive back to my house, he tells me he's had a great time and asked me if I want to be his girlfriend. Thinking I better just say yes so he doesn't ditch me in the middle of nowhere, I say, "Yeah, maybe let's see how it goes." And he says cool, next time he'll take me to meet his mum and dad, then tells me about how his mum bought his ex of 3 weeks a really expensive diamond bracelet and how she never gave it back when she left. And how much of a bitch she was to his mum. Finally, we pull up in my street, and I practically run out of the car saying thanks, talk to you later, bye, and bolt into my house. I immediately block him and remove him from Facebook and Tinder, mistake 3. Thinking thank God that's over. He messages me not even 15 minutes later asking why I blocked him. I try politely to say that he's way too full on, and I'm not interested, and he replies with a tirade of "this is the 3rd date this week that's gone wrong," and direct quote, "Fine, I guess I'll go fuck 17-year-olds. I'm never dating again." The kicker? He messages me on Facebook again a few months later with, "Hey babe, what's happening?" And when I reply with, "Are you kidding me?" He's like, "What? We haven't even met, yet why are you being a bitch?" To which I tell him that in fact I had the distinct displeasure of being stuck in a car with him for over 6 hours and to never message me again. Sorry it's long, but I'm really glad to get that off my chest. Met a guy on Bumble when I was in college and chatted for a few days. He asked me out on a date and wanted to take me to a cocktail bar. I declined that spot as I'm not a drinker, also why a cocktail bar on first meeting. Said he'll find something else. Day comes and he demands my address to send an Uber. I declined, said I'll drive myself. Obviously for safe measures, if something went wrong I would be able to leave when I wanted. He insisted and demanded I not bring a car. I was annoyed and sent an address down the street from me and waited there to be picked up. I got dolled up and hoped for the best. Unsure where the destination was, the Uber stops and lo, and behold it's the damn cocktail bar that I said no to. My mood went back down instantly. I walk in and call him to see where he is, and he tells me he's not there yet. He lives down the street, so he was going to get ready and walk when I arrived. Once again I was annoyed. It took him about 10 to 15 minutes to walk to the bar. He walks in in his gym attire. Some super short-ass shorts and an old tee. He mentioned he came from the gym like an hour ago and was chilling until the date. I was once again annoyed and at this point lost interest that he didn't bother to even change. The menu is handed over, and of course I don't look at it 'cause I don't drink. He asks what would I like, it's on him. I repeat again that I do not like drinking. He acts surprised as if we didn't have this conversation prior to meeting when I had declined the initial offer to meet at a bar. Mind you, this cocktail bar was a themed one. The menu was full of cocktails based on local things like the college or characters, etc. The only food on the menu was like some bread and charcuterie board type foods. I wasn't interested. Anyway, we're in there for about 15 minutes, as he ordered 2 drinks, one for himself and me. I took a small sip, and then watched him down both small glasses. We then leave. He asks me if I want to go back to his place. I say no. He then asks why. I say 'cause I don't want to, and we don't know each other well. He then says, okay, let's go see a movie. I say sure, a movie won't hurt, maybe I'm overreacting. He calls an Uber. We get in. The ride lasts about 5 minutes. I know that there is no movie theater this close. The Uber pulls into an apartment complex. My heart drops. I'm over it. We hop out the car, and he pulls me through the lobby. I'm making a sour face, and he questions me. I tell him that I made it clear that I did not want to come to your apartment. He says his apartment has a huge TV room, and he'll put on a movie for us to watch. That's not what I was expecting when he said, let's go to the movies. Now I'm really regretting not having my car on hand. I reluctantly sit in the TV room, and he puts on some kiddie YouTube show. He likes engrossed in it. I'm confused. He then tries to turn my face for a kiss, but is constantly distracted by the YouTube show, staring at it while trying to pull me closer. As I keep pulling away, he asks why I won't let him kiss me. I say, why should I don't know you. He's offended now and storms out. I see this as my chance of escape, so I run out after a minute and head down the first staircase I see. I run to the bottom and hide under the stairs before I leave. Since I'm unsure of my location, I wanted to see what's nearby and if I was near a bus stop or a restaurant to hide in. I wait about 5 minutes, and he is blowing up my phone. I put it on D&D. I run out and immediately start heading towards my heaven. I make it down the street, and I hear someone yelling. I don't turn around. There's lots of college kids being loud. Then I hear my name. Fuck me, bro. He runs UPS to me as I reach an intersection, so I have to stop. He like, where'd you go? Where are we walking right now? I'm like, I'm going home. He freaks out on me, saying I should have told him I don't drink. I should have told him that I didn't want to come back to his apartment, which I did. He then says, I called you, and you didn't answer. Show me your phone right now. Did you block me? Show me your phone. Mind you, all of this is coming from a man I just met a few hours ago in person. I walk off, only telling him that for starters I don't owe him anything, especially not access to my phone. And secondly, that he made me highly uncomfortable, and I will not be seeing him again. I walk away for about 20 minutes to make sure he wasn't following me, and then I called an Uber back home. The night I first met Emily, it felt like the universe had finally thrown me a bone. Her photos didn't do her justice. She was stunning, the kind of beautiful that makes everyone else in the room fade into the background. But it wasn't just her looks. She had a spark, a confidence, and a way of making you feel like you were the only person in the world she cared to talk to. I'd been on enough dates to know that kind of chemistry doesn't come around often, or ever. Our date was straightforward: dinner at a cozy little Italian spot, followed by a walk through the park. Nothing fancy, but it didn't need to be. The conversation flowed effortlessly, punctuated by her light, melodic laugh and the occasional shy smile that seemed out of place for someone so assured. By the time we said goodnight, I felt like I'd won the lottery. The next day, when she texted me inviting me to her friend's birthday party downtown, I didn't even hesitate. Sure, I had work the next morning, but when she sweetened the deal by offering her place as a crash pad, I was sold. Call it what you will, naivety, optimism, or just plain bad judgment, but I was all in. The party was in full swing when we arrived. The bar was packed, music thumping just loud enough to make conversation a challenge, but not impossible. Emily introduced me to her circle of friends, a lively group that welcomed me with open arms. Drinks flowed freely, laughter filled the air, and for a moment I thought to myself, this is it. I could get used to this. Then, out of nowhere, the night took a sharp left turn. It started small, something I almost didn't notice. Emily's laugh grew a little too sharp, her smile a little too tight. She'd glance at me, then at her friends, her eyes narrowing in ways I couldn't quite decipher. I chalked it up to the alcohol, or maybe some inside joke I wasn't privy to. But then it escalated. One moment we were standing at the bar, her hand casually resting on my arm as we talked to one of her friends. The next, she was shouting. Not at me, not at anyone in particular, just shouting. A burst of anger that seemed to come out of nowhere. Heads turned, conversations stopped, and before I could piece together what the hell was happening, she stormed out of the bar. I just stood there, stunned. Her friends exchanged awkward glances, a few of them muttering under their breaths. One of them, a guy named Trent, leaned in and said, "You should probably go after her." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. It's our second date, I said, shaking my head. Trent nodded, a smirk tugging at his lips. Fair enough. And that was that. The rest of the night passed in a blur. I stayed at the party, nursing a glass of water and chatting with her friends, who, to my surprise, seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me. There was no judgment, no awkwardness, just a group of people having a good time. By the time I made it back to Emily's place, she was nowhere to be found. Her car wasn't in the driveway, and the lights were off. I debated whether to text her, but something told me to just let it go. I crashed on her couch and left early the next morning, leaving a polite, "Thanks for the invite" text she never responded to. What happened next was unexpected, to say the least. Over the following weeks, I started getting texts from her friends, not Emily but her friends. They'd invite me out for drinks, trivia nights, and the occasional backyard barbecue. At first, I felt weird about it, like I was betraying some unspoken rule of dating. But they were persistent, and honestly, they were a great group of people. As for Emily, she faded into the background. I'd hear snippets of gossip here and there, something about a new boyfriend, a falling out with one of the girls, a job change, but nothing concrete. One night, months after the party, I finally asked Trent about it. We were sitting around a fire pit in his backyard, beers in hand, when I said, "So, what's the deal with Emily? Does she ever talk about that night?" Trent chuckled, taking a long sip of his beer before answering. "Man, Emily's complicated. She has this thing where she expects people to chase after her. Like literally. She pulls that stunt all the time, storming off, making a scene. It's like a test or something." "A test?" I repeated, raising an eyebrow. "Yeah. She wants to see if you'll drop everything for her. If you'll prove you care enough to come running. It's exhausting." "Sounds like it," I said, shaking my head. Trent shrugged. "She's not a bad person, just a lot. Honestly, I think you dodged a bullet." As time went on, my connection to Emily's friends only grew stronger. We became a tight-knit group, the kind of people you could call at 2 a.m. when your car broke down or when you needed someone to talk to. They never brought up Emily, and neither did I. It was as if she'd been erased from the narrative, a footnote in a story that had taken on a life of its own. But every now and then, late at night when the world was quiet and my mind wandered, I'd think about her. About that night at the bar, the look in her eyes as she stormed out, the way she'd captivated me on our first date. I'd wonder what might have been if I'd chased after her, if I'd played along with her test. And then I'd remember the laughter, the camaraderie, the friendships I'd gained by staying put. In the end, I realized some people come into your life like fireworks, dazzling, explosive, impossible to ignore. But fireworks are fleeting, burning out as quickly as they appear. Being a parent means your plans are never really yours. You can write them in ink, set alarms, make dinner reservations, and still, one unexpected call can erase it all. Isla never quite understood that. We met at a bookstore downtown, of all places. I was picking up a new novel for Emmy, my daughter, 13, obsessed with moody fantasy. Isla was browsing poetry, humming along to whatever was playing on the overhead speakers. She asked if the book in my hand was any good. I said I had no idea, but my daughter swore by it, and she smiled like that was the right answer. She liked that I was a dad. Told me so on our second date. "It means you're capable of love," she said. I liked her instantly. She was confident, thoughtful, charming without trying. A graphic designer with a thing for documentaries and red wine. I hadn't dated seriously since my wife, Lila, passed, 3 years, and I still sometimes reached for her side of the bed at night. But Isla made things feel light. Easy. Until they weren't. Thursdays became our day. I'd drop the kids at school, hit the grocery store, clean up the house a little, then meet Isla for lunch. Sometimes we'd walk by the lake, get coffee, talk about books we pretended we'd finished. It became routine. Comfortable. She met the kids once or twice. My son Eli is 9 and shy, but he liked her. Emmy was harder to read. At that age where everything's awkward and nothing is cool. Still, I thought we were doing okay. But I was wrong. It started with a phone call. Thursday, 10:13 a.m. I had just finished putting groceries away when my phone rang. Emmy. Crying. "Dad," she sobbed. "Can you come get me?" "What's wrong?" I think I got my period." Her voice cracked. I didn't hesitate. "Stay where you are, baby. I'm on my way." I texted Isla quickly. "Can't make lunch. Emma needs me. Emergency." I didn't wait for a reply. I was out the door in seconds. By the time I got to the school, Emmy was waiting near the office, her hoodie wrapped around her waist, eyes red. I hugged her. We picked up supplies from the pharmacy. I told her about pads and cramps and heat packs. I made awkward jokes to make her smile. She laughed once. I felt like I'd won the lottery. Back home, she took a long shower while I heated up soup and laid out a heating pad on the couch. She came out in pajamas, curled up under a blanket, and started watching some baking show she liked. It was just us, and it felt right. Isla showed up around 2 p.m. I hadn't expected that. She let herself in. We weren't at the key-sharing stage, but I'd left the door unlocked. She walked into the kitchen like she lived there. "Hey," I said, surprised. "What are you?" "Thought I'd come by since you bailed on lunch." Her tone wasn't playful. "Isla, now's not really. I got your text. Emergency." She made air quotes. I nodded toward the living room. "Emmy needed me." "I figured," she said. "But Dean, she's 13. That's what school nurses are for." I stared at her. She was scared. "She's not the first girl to get a period, Dean. You could have just explained it over the phone." "I'm her father," I said, trying to stay calm. "She needed me." She folded her arms. "And I needed you. We had plans." "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "You always choose your kids over me," she said. "Always." That's when I knew. This wasn't about a lunch. This was about her never understanding the difference between a commitment and a responsibility. We argued quietly, like people trying not to wake a baby. She accused me of emotional unavailability. I said she didn't get what it meant to be a parent. She said she did, and that I used my kids as a shield. I didn't yell. I never do. But inside, I was screaming. She left angry. I stayed behind, holding a heating pad and a half-empty bowl of soup. The next few days were cold. Texts with periods instead of exclamation marks. Okay instead of okay. The death of affection, one character at a time. I offered to talk. She declined. On Monday, she finally agreed to meet, neutral ground, a bench at the park where we first kissed. She showed up in sunglasses, even though it was overcast. We sat in silence for a while. She broke it first. "I love you," she said, "but I'm not sure I can be second forever. My kids aren't competition, Isla." "I know," she whispered, "but it still feels like I lose every time." I didn't have an answer for that, because love isn't a race. But maybe for her, it had always been. We ended things quietly. No drama. No final blowout. Just a soft unraveling of something that couldn't hold weight. She hugged me, told me to take care, walked away like she was trying not to limp. And I let her. Because sometimes the kindest thing you can do is stop trying to make someone stay in a world they don't understand. That night, Emmy asked if I was okay. I told her yes. She nodded like she didn't believe me. Neither did I. 3 weeks later. I haven't heard from Isla. I think about calling sometimes. But I don't. Because deep down, I know she wanted a partner, not a parent. And I can't stop being a father just to fit someone else's idea of balance. Some people think heartbreak comes in shouting matches. Mine came in silence. In a bowl of soup gone cold. This took place a while ago, 2015-ish, but I'll probably never forget it. I, around 21 at the time, female, was still fairly new in my city. I had just gotten out of a bad relationship, wasn't in the best place mentally, and didn't know a lot of people in town besides my ex and his friends. I was on a dating/hookup app looking for people to hang out casually with, maybe find a FWB or something. I had matched with a 25-year-old guy, Simon. We talked sporadically in the app for a few days. He explained he was in a band and living in a house with his bandmates. He sent me their music. It was just audio on YouTube with a heavily edited still image of 4 or 5 guys playing rock instruments. One of them looked like him. The music was an interesting combination of styles and not really for me, but whatever, he seemed like a nice enough guy. He stopped replying for a few days, and I figured that was that, moved on. Then one day I was at work and got a message from him saying sorry, he'd been so busy, and inviting me to a barbecue with his friends and bandmates in their yard. He had explained that their band manager was providing them the house to live in. Based on the lack of views on the YouTube video, and the fact I only saw one photo of him playing in the band, I figured he was probably exaggerating the band manager thing. I thought it was more likely something along the lines of a bar manager friend, giving them a discount on rent in exchange for being a house band at their bar or something, and didn't think much of it beyond that. Normally I would have just said no to going to a barbecue alone at the home of someone I really didn't know. But I was really bored and figured I might be able to overcome some social anxiety and maybe even make some female friends there since he made it sound like a pretty big party. I put the neighborhood he gave me into maps, and it was a suburban or with lots of families as far as I knew. I figured being in a yard on such a nice summer day wouldn't be overly risky, because lots of neighbors would be outside. Plus it was just a few train stops away from my workplace, and I was off in a few hours. I did tell him I wasn't overly comfortable with the idea since I didn't know him well, but I would stop by for a bit if I didn't need to go inside the house at all. He said that was totally fine, which made me feel a lot better. I even made sure to not drink anything for the rest of my shift, so I wouldn't be risking needing to go inside to use the bathroom. I was anxious about just showing up to a barbecue with people I didn't know at all, as he implied that the event was already underway. Plus I would have had a hard time finding a specific address from the backyard side, so I asked Simon if he could meet me at the train station since he said it was a quick walk anyway. He agreed to do that, and I let him know when I was leaving work and what time maps said the train would get to his station. I sent Simon a message to tell him that I had arrived at the train station around 5:30 after I looked around and couldn't find him. He told me he was running behind, and to just start walking toward the neighborhood. I was about halfway across the massive train station parking lot when I saw him slowly wandering toward me. I recognized his clothes, wearing bell-bottoms when they were not common, especially for men, and long hair from far away, but up close his face looked pretty different from his photos. It might have been some heavy-duty editing, I don't even know, but he kinda looked like a different guy. Older looking than the 25-year-old guy in the photos by 5 to 10 years, maybe used photos of his brother or something. I don't even know, it was before AI. This was the first real red flag, but I brushed it off. Maybe he's just self-conscious, maybe he smokes a lot and doesn't wear sunscreen and hasn't taken pictures in a while. All of his pictures looked candid, so I figured he wasn't much of a selfie guy. And besides, I'm mostly here to make friends anyway, so I shouldn't judge his appearance so harshly. He was also clearly already drunk, but a lot of my ex's friends were heavy drinkers, so that didn't seem strange. He's hosting a barbecue after all. The second red flag came shortly after when we arrived at the front door. I reminded him that I wasn't comfortable going inside the house, but he assured me we would just have to walk through to get to the backyard. Okay, fine. It wasn't the kind of neighborhood where you could just walk around the house to get to the backyard. We would have had to backtrack to the main road to go down the alley directly to the backyard. I figured he just forgot what I said about not wanting to go inside and didn't want to cause a bunch of trouble, so I went with it. We got in the house and he immediately closed the door and locked the deadbolt and knob behind me. I didn't think that was too weird since nobody was hanging out inside and a lot of people are just in the habit of locking the door when they come in, but it did still give me the heebie-jeebies for some reason. Then Simon told me he'd really like to give me a tour of the house. I politely declined and reminded him that I was just there for the barbecue. He said that he and his bandmates had worked really hard to get the house and he was really proud of it. At that point I was getting really skeptical, because usually when guys would tell me things that seemed a bit far-fetched, they'd let the truth slip by the time they got me to their house. But still, I convinced myself that I was being unreasonable. I was already in the stupid house anyway. He insisted it'd be quick. Not the wisest choice, I know. But I was pretty good at explaining away red flags, so at this point Simon still mostly had a dopey stoner art guy kind of vibe as far as I was concerned. He really didn't seem like a threat, just an insecure oddball who sucks at communicating and fibs a bit. Not unlike my ex, who was definitely emotionally and verbally abusive, but it never escalated past that. I figured at worst he'd get handsy, and I'd get called a prude for not sleeping with him. I didn't have a lot of self-worth at the time obviously, so I went with it. The tour started pretty uneventfully other than that the decor in the common areas was obviously chosen by a middle-aged Martha Stewart enthusiast, and not a bunch of guys in a band or their fake band manager. I didn't know if this should make me feel better or worse. On one hand, he was clearly lying, but on the other it made me think it was probably just someone's mom's house and she was out of town, and he didn't want to tell me he lived at a friend's parents' home and didn't actually have a paying job. Again, total red flag, but I could rationalize it at the time. The bedroom doors were all closed, bathroom was unremarkable. He then showed me the kitchen, and I finally saw through the window that there was nobody in the backyard. There weren't even barbecue supplies around. No burgers thawing on the counter, no cocktail supplies lying around, nothing. I asked him where everyone was and why he lied about the barbecue, and he told me that his bandmates were on tour still. They were just running behind due to van trouble, but they should be back any minute, so we could start the party. I asked him why he wasn't on tour with them if he's in the band. I don't even remember what his answer was to that, because it didn't make any sense. At this point, I'm out of mental gymnastics to convince myself that this guy isn't just completely full of shit, and I'm really freaked out. Took me long enough. I'm smarter now, don't worry. I started trying to figure out a way to get out of this situation. I hoped that once he was done the tour we could go outside, even just for a minute, and I'd just leave. I'd been in some sketchy situations in the past, but luckily nothing so bad that they tried very hard to physically stop me when I walked away in a semi-public place. I just wasn't comfortable doing it inside the house. I knew this guy was full of shit, but I had no idea how much worse it would get. I instinctively pretended to believe his bullshit. He offered me a beer. I said no thanks because I had to work in the morning. He said okay and cracked one for himself. Then he wanted to take the tour downstairs. I could see from the top of the stairs that the basement was the dark and creepy kind with really small windows, so I refused. I asked if we could go back outside. He said after the tour. I tried to argue about going into the basement, told him I have a spider phobia, don't like basements, etc. All lies, but anything that wouldn't let him realize that he was what I was afraid of. He started to get agitated about my reluctance, so I figured it would be better to just let him show me the damn basement, and then hopefully we could go outside, because I really didn't know what else to do. The basement was fairly unremarkable. Couch, TV, elliptical. Until I noticed something that gave me chills. The house was probably built in the 1990s or late 80s at the absolute earliest, but I saw a door that looked just like the heavy, foam-lined door to the cold storage room in my grandma's house. The kind that only opened from the outside. It was just a smaller version of the big metal doors on commercial walk-in fridges. It looked really out of place in this house. I would absolutely not go anywhere near that door. He opened it and told me it was their soundproof music studio. I looked inside from a few meters away. It did indeed look soundproof. It was about the size of a bedroom, and I could see a few guitars and amps in it. Mattress toppers on the walls. No drum kit or recording equipment that I could see. He insisted I go inside to get a better look. He was standing outside the door motioning for me to go inside. Holy shit, the alarm bells are really going off now. At this point I realized I could totally die here if I'm not careful, and I turned around to run up the stairs. He closed the door and followed me, asking what's wrong, acting like I'm being all unreasonable for not wanting to see his soundproof music studio. So I'm realizing that this is a way sketchier situation than any of my ex's bullshit, and I'm freaked right out. At that point my main objective was getting out of the house. The front and back doors were both closed and locked, so if I tried to run, he'd be able to get to me before I could get the locks open. The bathroom did not have a window. The house had a convoluted floor plan that I wasn't familiar with, and he was much bigger than I am. He was the tall, lanky type, who can run fast even if they're out of shape and smoke a pack a day. I pretended that I was okay with hanging out with him in the hopes that he'd chill out a bit. We made small talk for a few minutes. He cracked another beer, and thankfully he calmed down. I desperately mentioned yet again that it was beautiful outside, and suggested we go sit in the yard while we wait. He said no and started to get agitated that I wanted to leave already. I told him that I could stay, but I'd just really like to smoke a cigarette. He told me that we could smoke cigarettes inside, and pointed to a cereal bowl full of cigarette butts. God damn it. We sat down at the table and lit some cigarettes. As he was smoking, he started rolling a joint, which he promptly lit as soon as his cig was done. He offered me some, and I said no thanks. He insisted, so I took the smallest puff I could. I'm a pretty seasoned weed smoker, but I pretended to cough excessively and told him I'm a novice, so that's more than enough for me. For a liar himself, he thankfully wasn't very good at picking up on the lies of others. After we smoked, he asked if I'd like to watch a movie until his bandmates get back. I told him that I was really looking forward to spending the day outside and suggested we go for a walk or visit the park. Ideas he did not like or appreciate. At this point I was trying to keep as much distance as possible between us, but he stayed close enough to me that I could smell the beer on his breath. He grabbed me by the waist, and then I backed away and asked about the barbecue food to try and change the subject and make him think I still believed what he was telling me. He started to get angry again and sternly reiterated that his bandmates should be home any minute, and my anxiety was absolutely through the roof. I tried to calm him down again with generic small talk. Now I don't know how I got so lucky, but the next thing that happened might have saved me. Simon went to the fridge to get another beer and pulled out an empty box. At this point he's getting even more pissed off than before, so I went out on a limb and suggested we go get some more beer for the party. Because I was out of ideas. I was terrified that it would enrage him even more to suggest, once again, that we leave the house, but I had to try. Thankfully, though, his eyes lit up with the possibility that I could actually be down to drink with him, and he agreed. As we were walking to the liquor store, I still didn't really have a plan, because I was no longer comfortable just walking away from this fucking menace in this weirdly desolate suburb. But I was extremely relieved to be out of that house. I walked with him to the liquor store, and when we got there told him I didn't need to go inside if he was just going to go grab some beer. He insisted that I had to go inside. At that point I was so stressed and frazzled, I just went with him and hoped that a good opportunity to leave would arise. When we got inside the liquor store, he asked what kind of beer I wanted. I reminded him that I had to work tomorrow and didn't want to drink much. He demanded to know what kind of beer I wanted, so I just named the first one that came to mind. We went to pay. The cashier was kind of an asshole, so I didn't ask for help. I probably should have, but I panicked and didn't. I hoped there might be somebody in the parking lot who might help me if I made a scene, but there was nobody. I really regretted not asking the liquor store guy for help, but also remembered the times my ex told people I was crazy, so they wouldn't take me seriously. Liquor store guy definitely seemed like he would have fell for that, so probably for the best I didn't expect him to help me. I had one last idea before I took my chances just trying to run or scream. There was a drugstore across from the liquor store. I told Simon I had to go buy a toothbrush or some shit that vaguely implied I might stay over. He eagerly agreed to this, but tried to follow me into the store. I told him that you're not allowed to bring beer into a drugstore. I don't know if that's even true. I really doubt it's any kind of law, but luckily this drunk douchebag believed it and agreed to wait outside. Now, my naive ass thought maybe I could just wander around in this drugstore for long enough, and he would either get the hint or get sketched out or bored and leave. But no, I must have wandered around the store for at least half an hour, and this jackass is still just standing there staring in the window. This creep didn't even have his phone out. Every time I checked if he was still there, he was just staring through the window looking for me. I didn't feel like I had anybody I could call in the city to come help me. The cops here don't usually take things like this very seriously, and the store workers looked like they were mostly high school students, and I didn't want to drag them into this, so I really didn't feel like I had a lot of options. After being in there for so long, I was surprised he didn't come in to see what was taking me so long. I thought maybe I could lose him in the aisles and sneak out of the store if he did come in, but nope. I ended up hovering around the tills and waited until a big group of friendly-looking people were paying. I followed them out of the store and immediately told Simon to leave me alone and go home. I said it firmly and loudly enough to imply that I would make a scene if need be. Simon looked at the people getting in their car, who were now pausing and looking at us because I had nearly yelled at him, and then he just turned around and left. It was bizarrely anticlimactic, which I was very thankful for. I ran to the train station, which thankfully was in a different direction than his house from the store, and I never heard from him again. When I got home, his app profile had either blocked me or been deleted. Years later, after I stopped compartmentalizing the whole thing, I wish I would have reported him or something. It bothers me to wonder if he tried it again with someone else, but made sure the fridge was stocked first. But at the time I didn't think anybody would take me seriously. I was embarrassed of my choices, and I just wanted to move on from the whole thing. Plus, all I really had was a likely fake first name and a general idea of where the house was, which probably wasn't even his. I'll probably never know any more than I do now, and maybe that's for the best. Anyway, Simon, you lying POS, let's not meet. In my early 20s, I met a man on a hookup app and agreed to go to a barbecue he and his bandmates were hosting at their house in the suburbs. When I met up with him, he was really drunk, looked different from his photos, his bandmates were nowhere to be found, and the decor in the house didn't look like it was theirs. He locked the door and got angry every time I asked to go outside. After a tour of the house that included a soundproof music studio and no evidence of a barbecue, I was able to escape by suggesting we visit the liquor store together after he ran out of beer, and telling him to leave me alone once we were around a group of people. So this was like 9 years ago, so before a lot of these online dating things. So believe it or not, we actually met on Xbox Live. And coincidentally, she lived like 45 minutes away from me. I was 19 at the time, she said she was 16, and she was hot, so I never much questioned things. We hit it off right away when we met online, when I was dicking around with one of my friends. So since we hit it off, we continued talking. It got along even better, video chats and whatnot. Finally, I get some free time, and my friend and I agree to meet up with her where she lives. We meet up, all three of us go out to a movie, I kiss her goodnight, we go on our way. We continue talking like normal, find time again in about a month, and this time my friend brings his girlfriend, and we have kind of a double date with a movie again. On the way back to her place, we basically devoured each other in the back seat of my friend's car. His girlfriend actually made an annoyed comment to me about it on the way back home, once we dropped her off. Anyway, time goes on, and about 3 weeks later she tells me it's her birthday. So look, cool, you're turning 17 then? I'll see if we can do something. That's when she drops the bombshell. Actually, I'm turning 16. And the second she said that, it was like someone tied an anchor to my heart. I had a mini freak out in my head, but eventually managed to play it off with mild annoyance for her lying to me. I mean, she was hot. Drifting past our year-long relationship, which started a few months after that, and which I think only lasted so long because she liked having an older boyfriend to show off to her friends. We stayed friends after our breakup. About 2 years later we met up twice, and the second time when I was driving her back home we stopped off for some breakfast, and sat down at some breakfast place I can't recall. We started talking about the old days. We both had moved past each other, so it was more like just laughing about good times we had. And eventually she drops on me. I think my favorite part of our relationship was the fact that I could have ruined your life if I wanted to. And she was not even close to the craziest ex I've ever had. So seriously, I should have been one of those Netflix specials by now. You know, she thought she was just going on a Tinder date, but what happened next will shock you. So a couple of months ago, I was in one of those moods, post-breakup, eating ice cream straight out of the tub, and scrolling through TikTok until your thumb goes numb. My friends had been nagging me to get back out there and meet someone new, so I figured why not. I downloaded Tinder, told myself it was just for fun, and started swiping. That's when I matched with Ethan. Ethan was, well, let's just say he had the kind of rugged, outdoorsy vibe that makes you think, this man has definitely chopped wood shirtless before. His pictures were all hot guy starter pack, hiking in the mountains, holding a dog, classic move, and one artsy black and white shot where he was staring off into the distance like he was contemplating life, or maybe just trying to figure out how to spell charcuterie. His bio was short and sweet: photographer, adventurer, lover of scary movies and late-night conversations. Let's grab a drink and talk about life. Now, I'm a sucker for scary movies and guys with beards, so obviously I swiped right. We started chatting, and surprise, surprise, he was actually funny. Like, genuinely funny. Not the LOL, I give out of politeness funny, but the kind where I was actually laughing at his messages. He made a joke about how his dog was his most stable relationship, and I was hooked. After a few days of texting, Ethan asked me out for dinner. He suggested this cute Italian place downtown, and I thought, wow, a guy who knows how to plan a date? This is promising. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. The night of the date, I did the usual pre-date routine, tried on 14 different outfits, curled my hair twice, and spent way too long debating whether red lipstick was hot or trying too hard. By the time I left the house, I was feeling pretty good. When I got to the restaurant, Ethan was already there, waiting outside. He looked just like his photos, which was a relief because, let's be real, the bar for online dating is please don't catfish me. He gave me this big, warm smile and said, "Hey, you made it." The first half of the date was fine. Great, even. We ordered wine, shared some garlic bread, and talked about everything from our favorite movies to the weirdest things we'd ever eaten. He said kangaroo. I said a gas station hot dog at 3 a.m. Ethan was charming, attentive, and had this way of making me feel like I was the only person in the room. But then about halfway through the meal, things started to get weird. It started small. Ethan kept glancing over my shoulder, like he was watching someone, or something, behind me. At first, I thought maybe he was just nervous or distracted, but it kept happening. Every few minutes, his eyes would flicker to the side, and his smile would falter just a little. "Is everything okay?" I finally asked, trying to sound casual. "Oh yeah," he said, waving it off. "Just thought I saw someone I know." I let it go because, honestly, I didn't want to ruin the vibe. But then, when the waiter came by to refill our drinks, Ethan asked for the check. "Already?" I asked, laughing. "What? Are you allergic to good pasta?" He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Nah, just thought we could go somewhere quieter. You know, talk more without all the noise." Now, this is where most people would probably think, that's kind of weird. But my dumb brain was like, wow, he really wants to get to know me. How sweet. After we left the restaurant, Ethan suggested we go for a walk. It was a nice night, and the area was pretty busy, so I didn't think much of it. We strolled down the street, talking about random stuff, and eventually ended up in this little park. Here's the thing about parks at night. They're either super romantic or super creepy, and this one was leaning hard toward creepy. The streetlights were dim, the trees cast these long, spooky shadows, and there was this weird, eerie quiet that made my skin crawl. But Ethan didn't seem bothered at all. If anything, he seemed excited. "This is nice, huh?" he said, looking around. "Yeah, super cozy," I said, trying to sound chill while also glancing over my shoulder every 5 seconds. Then he stopped walking, turned to me, and said, "Hey, let me show you something." Now at this point, my gut was like, girl, do not follow this man. But my brain, powered by years of bad decisions and horror movie naivety, thought, what's the worst that could happen? Ethan led me down this little path, away from the main part of the park. The further we went, the darker it got, and the more I started to regret every life choice that had led me to this moment. "Where are we going?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light even though my heart was pounding. "You'll see," he said, flashing me a grin that, in hindsight, was way too confident. We finally stopped in this clearing, and Ethan pointed to something on the ground. It was a small black bag, like one of those gym bags people use to carry their stuff. "What's that?" I asked, my voice a little shaky. "Just something I left here earlier," he said, crouching down to unzip it. "Okay, let me pause here and say, this was the moment I should have run. Like full-on sprinted back to civilization. But instead, I just stood there frozen as Ethan pulled out duct tape. I wish I could tell you I handled this situation like a badass. I wish I'd grabbed a rock and knocked him out or screamed for help. But no, my fight-or-flight response decided to take a third option, stand there like an idiot and pray this isn't happening. What's that for?" I asked, my voice cracking. Ethan looked up at me, and for a split second, his charming facade slipped. His expression turned cold, calculating. "Oh, don't worry," he said, his tone way too casual. "It's not for you. Not for me." What kind of answer is that? At this point, my brain finally caught up with the situation, and I did what any self-respecting person would do. I lied my ass off. "Oh my God," I said, clutching my stomach. "I think I'm gonna be sick." Ethan blinked, clearly caught off guard. "What?" "Yeah, I think that pasta didn't agree with me," I said, doubling over for dramatic effect. "I need to go. Like now." He hesitated for a second, then sighed and said, "All right, let me walk you back." But I wasn't about to let him get me alone again. No, it's fine," I said quickly. "I'll call an Uber." I didn't wait for him to argue. I pulled out my phone, pretended to call a ride, and started speed walking back toward the main street. The whole way back, I could feel Ethan watching me. He didn't follow, but I swear I could hear his footsteps just behind mine, soft and deliberate. When I finally made it to the main road, I turned around, and he was gone. I got in the first Uber I saw and didn't stop shaking until I was home. Ugh, I have one and I wish I didn't. So I talked to this guy for a while. I was still very new to online dating, and hadn't learned a few of the basic rules yet, like meeting for just coffee on the first date. Anyway, he seemed pretty normal when we spoke, and he told me he was also an accountant like me. He invited me out for dinner and a movie, and I thought sure, why not? So he picks me up from my place. Second no, that's a mistake I'll never make again. And I swear before we even leave my street I realize he's a bit weird, and I'm not really keen at all. Whatever, I'm here now, so may as well get dinner and sit through a movie. In the 20-minute drive there, he tells me about his job, which sounds absolutely nothing like accounting at all. Like he doesn't even know what an accountant is, his dating history, and his last girlfriend, who he had dated for 3 whole weeks, who was an alcoholic, still spoke to her ex and brought her kid along to their romantic weekend away. So for dinner, he takes me to the drive-thru of McDonald's. Not even the walk-in, the drive-thru. He then informs me the movie we are going to see is actually a movie marathon of the last 3 Fast and the Furious movies. Oh, and it's also at the drive-ins, fuck. At this point, I'm wondering how the hell I'm going to get out of this. So we drive from McDonald's to the drive-ins, which is only about 10 minutes away. Before we even get there, he's told me about how often he and his ex used to have sex, and asked me in my relationships how often I had it. Obviously, I told him I didn't want to talk about that stuff on a first date. I'm thinking, get me the fuck out of here. The movie starts, and I'm practically leaning out of the window to stay as far away from him as I can. He puts his hand on my leg, and I push it off, and he says, "What?" "I'm not gonna finger you, babe." I'm seriously considering just making a run for it, but I had no way home, and I had just moved to my city, so I didn't know anyone to call to come and get me. After awkwardly sitting through 2 of the 3 movies, I tell him it's late, and I need to go home 'cause I have to work in the morning. I didn't, and he says no worries, he'll take me home. So on the most awful drive back to my house, he tells me he's had a great time and asked me if I want to be his girlfriend. Thinking I better just say yes so he doesn't ditch me in the middle of nowhere, I say, yeah, maybe let's see how it goes. And he says cool, next time he'll take me to meet his mum and dad, then tells me about how his mum bought his ex of 3 weeks a really expensive diamond bracelet and how she never gave it back when she left. And how much of a bitch she was to his mum. Finally, we pull up in my street, and I practically run out of the car saying thanks, talk to you later, bye, and bolt into my house. I immediately block him and remove him from Facebook and Tinder, mistake 3. Thinking thank God that's over. He messages me not even 15 minutes later asking why I blocked him. I try politely to say that he's way too full on, and I'm not interested, and he replies with a tirade of this is the 3rd date this week that's gone wrong, and direct quote, fine, I guess I'll go fuck 17-year-olds. I'm never dating again. The kicker? He messages me on Facebook again a few months later with, hey babe, what's happening? And when I reply with, are you kidding me? He's like, what? We haven't even met, yet why are you being a bitch? To which I tell him that in fact I had the distinct displeasure of being stuck in a car with him for over 6 hours, and to never message me again. Sorry it's long, but I'm really glad to get that off my chest. Hit me up on Tinder, and we quickly exchanged numbers. After numerous Snapchats and 3 hours have passed, she asked to meet up at an IHOP parking lot, an hour away. It was 2 a.m. at the time, and I had nothing else going on for the rest of the night, so I decided I'd give it a shot. I knew from the Snapchats that she wasn't a petite girl by any means, but I figured I'd give it a shot. It wasn't my first Tinder date, but this one was certainly the quickest first message to meet up I've had. On my hour drive over to IHOP, she informs me she brought her friend along to make sure I wasn't going to rape or hack up her body. Turned me off a little bit, because I assumed she would be a major obstacle for my ultimate goal for that night. So I finally pull into the parking lot, and I see her and her friend leaning up against the hood of their car. I'd be lying if I said she was under 200 pounds in all of her 5 feet 1 inch frame. I circled the building a couple times, trying to talk myself into leaving, but I had just driven an hour at 2 a.m. I wasn't going to just turn around and head back home, no way. So I parked next to them after just giving myself the pep talk of my adult life. We exchange formalities, and I get introduced to her friend. I understand strength in numbers, but the guy wasn't stopping me from doing anything malicious if that was my intent. He was about 5 feet 6 inches, 130 pounds. I'm 6 feet 2 inches, 210 pounds. He pretty much just looks at me and gets back in his car, and the ogre and myself make some awkward small talk outside of the car for a little while. So I get to the point of the conversation where things start getting heated. She initially asked me to make out with her in the back seat of her car where her friend is sitting in the passenger seat. I shot that down real quick. She wasn't comfortable getting into my car for whatever reason. After she declined my request for my car, she wouldn't have fit anyway. At the time I was driving an Acura RSX. She invites me back to her brother's house where she is currently living. Instant red flag for me. I ask what's wrong with my car. She said she doesn't too and to stop pressing it, lol. I had to run so many different scenarios in my head before I could give her an answer. In the parking lot she started feeling me up, talking dirty in my ear, anything she could to convince me to come home with her. I was lucky enough to think with my brain instead of my dick and turn down her offer. Needless to say, she was livid that I could turn her down. I quickly got back in my car and left before she could say anything else. I think my favorite part of the story was the text I got about 10 minutes after I left. You could have been balls deep in my pussy right now, and she sent me pictures of the most vile vagina I've seen in my life. I won.